Welcome to chapter 10. So pause, write this down, or listen to what I say and then pause and write this down. This is some vocabulary that's really very important to, well, the rest of math. So, parallel lines, which we have talked about parallel lines before. We know that when we're talking about parallel lines on a coordinate plane, they have the same slope. Okay. When we're talking more in a geometry sense, we don't usually have a slope necessarily, but we know that they are coplanar, which means they're on the same plane, and they do not intersect. Okay, which the do not intersect, you were able to tell me that this time last year because you learned that somewhere along the way in earlier math classes. Okay, so for example, AB is parallel to EF. Remember, this symbol right there means parallel. Okay, two very straight lines close together means parallel. And when we see it on the on a picture, these arrows right here mean that line is parallel to that line. Okay, notice down here EG has two arrows and FH has two arrows, so the two arrow lines, so EG and FH, are parallel, but they're not parallel to the lines with one arrow. So that's why these have one and these have two, okay? Because the lines with the one arrow are parallel to each other, but they're not parallel to the lines with two, which of course you're probably looking at that going, well, of course not, Miss Emig. But that's what the arrows mean. Let me erase those because now we're going to talk about other things. Okay, so perpendicular lines, and that means perpendicular, okay? You need to know these symbols and these words. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Your job of learning is learning the symbols, learning the vocabulary, and being able to use it all in conversation and in answers and stuff like that. Okay, so you should know that perpendicular lines intersect at 90-degree angles, right? They make right angles, okay? We also learned in the algebra part of Math 1 last year that they have slopes that are opposite reciprocals. Okay, always good to put that back into our front of our brain because we will have to talk about that eventually again. Okay, so here we have that EG is perpendicular to GH, and we know that because it gave us that little right angle box. Notice we also have a right angle box up here because AB is perpendicular to AE. Okay, that's what this says and this says. Then we talk about skew lines. Okay, skew is kind of one of those words that is just kind of a weird word. So skew lines means that they're not coplanar, they're not parallel, they don't intersect. Basically, they have nothing to do with each other. Okay, skew lines are unrelated, basically. Okay, so this example is that AB and EG. So AB is going this way, EG is going this way, AB is way back there, EG is up front. They're not going to intersect. They're not parallel. They're on different planes. So like AB is in the back, on the back wall here. EG is on the front wall. They're unrelated to each other. That is what skew means. Whoops. So then we talk about parallel planes. Well, remember, a plane is a flat surface. Flat surface is a plane. Okay? So to talk about parallel planes, I think it's easier to talk about real life things. The walls in the classroom here, the front and the back wall are parallel. They face each other, right? And then the two side walls are parallel. The floor and the ceiling are parallel planes. They are flat surfaces that will never intersect. Hopefully the floor and the ceiling in the classroom will never intersect, right? So that's parallel planes. They're planes, flat surfaces, that don't ever intersect. It's not on here, but we also could have perpendicular planes, right? So like this plane here, that front wall, if you will, and the side wall would be perpendicular, could be perpendicular, okay? Or the front wall and the ceiling could be perpendicular, should be perpendicular actually, if we're talking about an actual house. So that's what all these vocabulary words are. However you need to do this, this needs to be written down. This needs to be learned, memorized, you need to be able to apply it from now forward. So, the question, so here's a bunch of playing cards basically, right? So we need a pair of parallel segments. Parallel segments. So really a segment is a part of a line, right? So if we just pick one, let's just pick LM, what would be parallel to it? Well, we actually have two choices. Well, really three choices, but notice that the one we picked, LM, has one arrow, right? So the other segments that would be parallel to it would also have one arrow. So NK over here, so we're going to say LM is parallel to NK. Or notice that PS down here only has one arrow, is parallel to PS, is parallel to RQ, it also only has one. Okay, now it says a pair of, so really just pick two of those and you're good to go. Okay, but you need to be writing these correctly. Segment line over the letters, the parallel symbol between. Okay, so you need to be writing this out on a piece of paper so that you have the parallel lines and etc. Okay, let's see, a pair of skew segments. Well, remember skew means basically unrelated. So segments that are unrelated. Well, let's pick this LM again just to start. There's lots of choices here, okay? Well, let's see, what's not parallel to LM? How about RS? It's not parallel. It's on a different plane. They're never going to intersect. So, and you would just write skew to RS, okay? You could have said PQ. You could have said KN and RS. There's lots of choices here, okay? So be careful with that. You don't have to name them all. You just need to name what it asks for, a pair. Then we want a pair of perpendicular, that should be segments. Picture apparently moved over. Perpendicular, so we're going to have the perpendicular sign in between. So let's just pick one. Let's stick with the LM. Except that, so LM would be perpendicular to NM or LK. Okay. Notice though that there's no right angle sign up there, but there are down here. Okay. So if this is right, then this is right. Okay. So you have so many choices here. You could use the box here and say RS and RM. So RS is perpendicular to RM. Oops, I forgot my segment lines. Okay, so many different choices. Now on this last one, you don't have very many choices. Parallel planes, okay? Now remember, when we name a plane, we need to use all four letters. Okay, so if we use the top, we would say LMNK. And we would actually say plane, LMNK, there's no symbol for it, okay, is parallel to, let's see, the top would be parallel to the bottom, right? Okay, be careful, start making sure you're accurate here. If you started with L, start with Q. So Q, and then go the same direction, R, S, P, okay? Notice we didn't say QRPS. Okay, you got to go in order. In order as you would draw that, as you would draw it around. Okay, so moving on. Again, this vocabulary is super duper 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 important. So important. So take the time to pause and write this down. You absolutely have to be able to identify a transversal, corresponding angles, alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, and same side or consecutive interior angles. This is vocabulary that you will use over and over and over again. And it will just pop up. You'll like in 2 chapters, you're just going to see some angles and you're going to have to remember, oh wait, those are corresponding angles. Okay, so you need to get good at this. We're going to practice it. Don't worry. So take the time to pause and write this down. So a transversal is when you have 2 lines and a line that cuts through both of those lines, and that line is the transversal. The one that intersects the 2 lines. Okay, that's your transversal. When you have 2 lines and a transversal, then you get these angles. Okay, so corresponding angles, one's in the exterior, one's in the interior, and they're on the same side of the transversal. Okay, they kind of both sit in the same spot. So 2 and 6, or 1 and 5, or 3 and 7, or 4 and 8. Okay, so you might want to write the rest of those on here too. Angle 3 and angle 7, angle 4 and angle 8, angle 2 and angle 6. Unfortunately, you can't just memorize the numbers because the numbers move around. Okay, so the next one you see, it might have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you can't just memorize the numbers. Okay, you actually have to memorize what each of them are. Okay, corresponding are kind of the hardest ones. The rest of them, it says in the angle what it is. So I mean, in the name. So alternate interior angles are on alternate or opposite. Erase some of my scribbles here. Okay, so we could call this opposite sides of the transversal inside. Okay, so alternate means opposite sides. So opposite sides. Opposite sides. Inside, so 4 and 5, or 3 and 6. Whoops. So angle 4 and angle 5, or angle 3 and angle 6. Alternate in exterior, same idea. Opposite sides of the transversal outside the 2 lines. So opposite sides outside the 2 lines. So 1 and 8, or angle 2 and angle 7. Same side interior, also called consecutive interior. Also called consecutive interior. So same side. So same side of the transversal now inside. So 3 and 5, or angle 4 and angle 6. Again, write this down. Start to learn it. Start to memorize it. You absolutely need to know how to find each of these kinds of angles. So, corresponding angles. Okay, I'm actually going to go back to this. I'm going to start at the bottom. We're going to do same side interior. Same side of the transversal inside the lines. So, angle 4 and angle 5. Or angle 3 and angle 6. Alternate interior, alternate exterior. So opposite sides of the transversal outside the lines. So, angle 1 and angle 7, or angle 2 and angle 8. That's an 8, sorry. Excuse me. Alternate interior would be inside the lines, right? But alternate. So inside and alternate. So angle 3 and angle 5, or angle 4 and angle 6. And then the reason I did those last, the corresponding angles are, corresponding doesn't really mean a lot to us. It's not like these that tells you exactly where it is. Okay, so the corresponding angles, if you just remember that it's the other ones. So it's the ones who kind of sit in the same spot. So notice that angle 1 is kind of sitting on top of this line and on this side of the transversal, right? So we need to go the top of this line and this side of the transversal, so that would be angle 1. Notice every time I'm writing the angle sign. That's how we do this. Be proper, okay? The other thing is that corresponding angles have there's 4 choices for corresponding angles, okay? So if it's 1 and 5, it's also 2 and 6. Or 3 and 7, notice how they're both on the bottom of the transversal there. Or 8 and 4. Please, please, please ask if you have questions. Please, 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 okay? So now we need to kind of go backwards and find the transversal, okay? So if we're talking about angle 1 and angle 3, so here's angle 1, here's angle 3, okay? Which means that this part down here doesn't matter to us right now, okay? All we care about is this and this and this, okay? So which one of these lines, L, M, or N, cuts through the other 2? Well, that would be angle L, because right here, line L. That line cuts through these 2 lines, right? So the transversal would be line L, okay? And then we want to classify. So 1 and 3. Well, 1 is sitting kind of on this, and 3 is sitting here, and they're on the same side of the transversal, okay? So notice that they're not both inside. One of them's outside, one of them's inside. So that means they're corresponding. Let me erase all my scribbles here. So now for B, we're talking about angle 2 and angle 6. So that means that these guys over here don't matter at all. Okay? So that means we've got this line cutting through this line and this line. So this one is the line that touches everything, or both of the lines that both angles that we're talking about. So that means that the transversal is line N. And notice that 2 and 6 are both inside the 2 lines, right? They're between the 2 lines. So they're they're interior something, and they're alternate sides of the transversal, so they must be alternate interior. And yes, please feel free to abbreviate, as long as I can tell what you mean. Okay, and then last but not least down here, we've got angle 4 and angle 6. So that means these guys over here don't matter at all to us. And notice that it was this line right here that's cutting through these 2 lines. So that means this line is touching both of the angles, so that is line M is our that's supposed to be an M. M is our transversal. And 4 and 6, here's a line, here's a line. So 4 and 6 are both outside, so they're exterior. And the only exterior one we have is alternate, and they are on opposite sides, so they're alternate exterior. Please, 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 please ask questions if you have them. This is huge. This is so important that you understand and you know how to do this.